They feel validated, they feel heard, they feel seen. We see them become more connected to the current treatment plans that are in place for them. It's almost like they become recommitted to recovery through that peer mentorship and through being able to just work with somebody who gets it. Again, somebody who's been there.
You've arrived at the Mental Health Spotlight podcast with therapist Kais. Jason Wood, I wanted to interview you about what I thought was one thing, and then I started looking at all the stuff you've done, and now there's so many things to talk about that we might need a lot of time.
Well, I can always come back again. I can be a repeat. Yeah.
I like that because
Yeah.
typically I keep us well under an hour, but we're going to see how much we get through because you've done a lot.
Yeah. Well, this is the only thing I got on the schedule all afternoon, so I'm around.
Okay, I'll bump my clients. I'll be like, this is important. We're having a very good conversation here.
Exactly.
Well, I know you through some different mental health channels, but what's a little bit of your history of what's even going to bring you to a conversation about eating disorders in our community? Who the heck are you and how'd you get here?
Yeah, I did not anticipate getting here, that is for sure.
Nice.
I had dealt with insecurities around my body and my appearance in elementary school, so going all the way back to being a little kid. And once I got to high school, I had that first introduction into formalized dieting. And then I went through some very traumatic experiences with losing both of my parents at a young age. And I think it just developed into this perfect storm that kind of took the first 2 decades of my life to just try to survive. And about 5 years ago, I found myself at rock bottom, just mentally, physically, emotionally, and I reached out for help. And when I reached out for help, I was kind of mad that it had taken me so long to realize all the struggles that I had been going through in this eating disorder that I had been experiencing for so long, because I was blinded by the stigmas and the stereotypes that are out there. And that kind of fueled my passion for getting involved and for having these types of conversations. Early on in my recovery journey, I started a blog, and I didn't figure anybody would read it. I didn't really care, but I needed to get it out there somewhere. I needed to get that outlet out there. And one thing led to another, and I ended up publishing a book, and now I work at ANAD. I've changed careers so that I'm 100% focused on raising awareness and providing support and just helping other people navigate some of those same challenges that I went through for so long.
So you're borrowing from your lived experience more than a path that you thought you were going to go on because it was predefined. Like this came out of your lived experience.
Yeah, this is totally from my lived experience. I would say one of the first jobs that I thought I was going to be pursuing was a lawyer. Needless to say, my life has gone in a completely different direction from that now. And it's my purpose, though. It's one of those things where it never feels like work. Every day I wake up and I get to pursue my passion, and I get to really, it feels like fight back at that eating disorder. Even though I'm in a great place in my own recovery journey, to be able to help other people fight now, it just means so much to me.
And it is a fight. It is a fight because there's so many different things coming at them at all times. We need a whole bunch of people like you to stand in front on the front line.
Yeah, and I gladly will. I tell people all the time, I don't have a fancy degree up on my wall. In fact, I got a picture of flying hamburgers up on the wall, so that's my qualification there. But having that lived experience and being able to engage in conversations with other people who just get it, who have been there, who have walked that same path, it's just invaluable to be able to make those connections.
That's amazing. Now, and you said it correctly because I don't know that I've ever said it correctly. It's ANAD.
Anid. Yeah,
ANAD.
yeah. Yeah, funny little
ANAD.
name.
ANAD. Well, and I finally, this is the other thing. So I've worked with them and, I've constantly giving them to clients to use as a resource. And then I realized I didn't even know what it stood for. The National Association of Anorexia Nervosa and Associated Disorders.
Yeah. That is quite a mouthful, isn't it?
That's it, right? Like I never knew what it stood for.
Yeah. That's what, and you want to know a fun fact of how it got the name Anna?
I very much would.
Yeah, I was fascinated when I first found this out. We were founded back in 1976, so we're getting ready to turn 50 in 2026, which is very exciting. And at that point, everybody was still relying on the phone book to find information or to find resources. So if we selected the ANAD initials from our name, that put us at the beginning of the phone book, and the rest is history. So that's how it all began.
It's a great fact and it's a smart fact.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's really cool. It's a great conversation starter too.
My gosh, I love that. Like in my phone, I put A in front of people who I text a lot, thinking I'm smart.
Hmm.
But Anna had it figured out a long time ago. 1976. Back when we weren't talking about eating disorders, we certainly weren't making them public. We were hiding in back rooms to discuss it. That's a lot of legacy in history.
Yeah, yeah, we were considered very radical back then, and people were very skeptical of what ANAD was going to do. But our founder, Vivian Meehan, her daughter had been struggling with an eating disorder, and there weren't support resources out there for Vivian herself or for her daughter. So she started support groups at her house. She started the helpline through her home phone. And again, the rest is kind of history. Over the years, we've navigated many changes within the eating disorder field and community. Of course, at the beginning, anorexia nervosa was the only diagnosis out there. So that's another reason why our name is what it is, because at that point it was just and associated disorders. But now we know that there are a lot of types out there. We know that they can impact anybody. And we have really tried to build a comprehensive, inclusive community here at ANID that is representative of everybody who could be struggling with any type of eating disorder.
Just browsing through your staff directory, because I had to learn a bit more about something I refer to all the time and know little about. You have a lot of people with a lot of different backgrounds. It's a plethora of humans that work there or that support. And
Yeah, it really is. The
Mhm.
amazing thing is, people always think that we're like this big organization because, of course, we got national in our name. So I guess that sounds fancy. And we are the oldest nonprofit. So again, that kind of helps. But we're only a staff of like six of us. So we are a small, cohesive group, but we've got over 300 volunteers who make our programs possible. So they are the ones that aren't even listed on the staff page, and they really should be because they're incredible people. And they come from all different backgrounds, all different experiences, and they're the ones who make the work that we do possible. So whether it's our peer support groups, our helpline, our mentorship program, it's all volunteer driven. And it's so cool to be able to work and be in community with these people because I learn something new from them every single day. In my role as director of community engagement, I say my first priority is to listen because I always have something new to learn. And that's exactly what I do.
I love it. Listening, where you can just gather so much more information and stories of humans. I love it.
When I came into the space, the only story I knew was my own, which I didn't even really know my own story. I had to process that for a long time. But now I have been able to engage in conversations and I understand where things like food insecurity can come into play, or racial bias or weight stigma that people can experience. And it's all through listening, it's all through having those conversations. And it gives me a much deeper knowledge and understanding of eating disorders and mental health challenges.
And being a nonprofit and depending on volunteers means you need them. There's not a ton of funding other than whatever fundraising you do in private giving. So we have to have people, and we have to have people that support organizations like ANAD as well.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. We rely entirely on our donors and our fundraiser and our volunteers because yeah, they make it possible. And just the way that they're so generous with their time and with their support, and we do our best to support them every step of the way. So all of our volunteers go through comprehensive training when they come on board. We meet with them on a regular basis. We keep the lines of communication open all the time. So if a volunteer needs anything at all, they can reach out to staff and we're there for them. We do special trainings along the way too, so that they can learn more about maybe a specific topic that's going on right now in the eating disorder community, or perhaps something that they can take if they're pursuing a profession in the field down the road. So we really try to be there for personal and professional development.
And I'll make sure to put in show notes the connection to ANAD if people want to donate. And we'll talk later about how they can start if they want to volunteer as well, but also just to support it, to know it's out there.
Yeah, yeah, please do, please do. As we're recording this, it's our end of year campaign right now, Igniting Hope. So I am in full fundraising mode, which it's always hard. It's always hard to have to ask, but at the end of the day, it's like, this is making a difference. And I get to see that happen every single day. And I couldn't, ask somebody to support the organization if I didn't 100% fully believe that it's making a difference.
And you don't have a funding stream. People who do what I do as a therapist, I have an insurance funding stream. At least we can stay helpful in that way, but there really isn't many. You have to depend on donations and private giving, right? Or maybe
Yep.
grants occasionally.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, grants every now and then. Very, very, very rarely do those because they're so competitive. There's so few grants, especially when it comes to eating disorder work. It's amazing when I hear friends and colleagues in other nonprofits in other fields, just the amount of funding that they have compared to what we see here in the eating disorder field. It's night and day. We see just a tiny percentage, and that goes across the board. Whether it's we're looking at research that's happening for eating disorders or support or even providers themselves. It's a very small sliver.
And that kind of goes to one of the things I wanted to discuss is where there's a paucity of support. Have you noticed it changing at all? I feel like in the time I've been doing this that it's a little bit more, I don't know if it's on trend or people are talking about it more. Are you noticing any more acknowledgement, or does it seem about the same as it was when you started? And I didn't ask when you started ANAD either, but maybe compared to then.
Yeah, yeah. So I started in January of 2023. So I'll be going on 3 years here. And I would say there is a slow thawing that's happening, and it's kind of following what we've seen with the mental health conversation. Mental health in the last probably 10 years has definitely come to the forefront, and we're talking about it much more openly than we were. Eating disorders is still a couple years behind that because it is so stigmatized. But I do see more and more people reaching out, being willing to share their stories, share their experiences. And to me, that's where it all begins. We need more people who are speaking up and saying, I've experienced this, I've gone through this, this is what an eating disorder looks like. Because unfortunately, there's so many misconceptions out there still that we need that lived experience. We need those people coming forward and sharing their stories. And I get it, there's a lot of shame around it. It can be really scary to share. But wow, what a difference it can make when you do.
Yes, the shame lives in the silence. That's why I do this, because there's so many stories and recovery beauty and information and resources that I was seeing. I'm like, how can I get this to more people? It can't just stay in this room. And you're doing that too, right? Isn't that what the community piece is all about?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, we've got at ANAD, we've got our day of conversation that takes place during Eating Disorders Awareness Week. And to me, it is so important that we partner with other mental health organizations and other nonprofits outside of the eating disorder space so that we can bring all of these fantastic resources that we have in our community to other people, because we talk about it so much to each other, but we already know, like, we need to expand the reach and get it to communities and to populations who maybe have never heard about this before.
Yeah, I know we're going to talk about your school initiative, and we have one building here too to get into our schools and our staff and our coaches who don't know what you and I know, either by accident or for many years, and they won't know what they don't know. Yeah. So I won't go there. I want to come back later then and talk a little bit about your book too, because I didn't know you wrote a book. So now that was something I learned.
Yeah.
But we're already kind of into it. Anna does. So I kind of broke it down. Tell me if I'm right here. Maybe follow me on the site. You mentioned the helpline. Online, there's some guides and treatment directories as well for people. We have the support group piece, and then I call it peer support, but it looks like recovery mentors, kind of the same thing for people.
Yeah, peer mentorship, recovery, peer mentor. It's such a cool program. It launched in 2016, and it's that one-on-one peer support. So an individual who's been in recovery or recovered for at least 2 years is matched with an individual who's active in ongoing recovery at the time, and they will work together for 6 months, meeting virtually once a week. And it is such a cool program. We hear amazing testimonials, and I just recently got to speak with several of the mentees who went through the program this last cohort. And just they feel validated, they feel heard, they feel seen. We see them become more connected to the current treatment plans that are in place for them. It's almost like they double down and they become recommitted to recovery through that peer mentorship and through being able to just work with somebody who gets it. Again, somebody who's been there.
Someone who's been there, and like you mentioned, that reciprocation. Being in recovery is for some people a lifelong purpose of staying tuned into. Not necessarily that you're not in recovery, but you have to stay tuned in. And I would think for the mentees that or the mentors, that provides such a resource for them as well to talk the talk.
Yeah, it really does. It
Yeah.
was cool. I got to talk to some of the mentors too. And yeah, for them, they're like, wow, it helped me realize where I'm at in my own recovery journey because yeah, it's an ongoing journey. And they were like, it also helped me kind of find some meaning and purpose behind everything I went through. They were like, that eating disorder was such a dark time in my life, but now I can use that experience to help other people. And just to hear those stories that come out of the peer mentorship program, it's really cool.
Well, as a clinician working with people on a recovery path, I always have that little tinge in the back of my brain. I'm like, you're going to be such a good peer mentor one day. We get you in that 2-year recovery place. Yeah, you
Yeah,
kind of
it
know.
is so cool. We've got several peer mentors who were peer mentees before, so it's really cool to see that full circle moment.
Get funded. How does that work in at least at ANAD? I know some places do something similar, but
Yeah, so all of that comes again through those private donations, those individual donors, and the sponsorships and the partnerships that we're able to form. So yeah,
wow,
that is how
that's all
all of
funded.
that. It on average it costs us about $250 per peer mentor mentee match. So we try to keep those expenses as low as we can, which again, we've got the volunteer support, so that helps, but still it costs money to do these types of things. I wish it didn't. I wish we could have just
Mm,
hundreds and hundreds of peer mentors, but unfortunately, when you look at training and technology and all of that, it does all go back to donations.
yeah, it does. It makes me think of the style of AA and the sponsor. And the sponsor is a volunteer who has lived experience that is willing to guide somebody who's going through it fresh. So, and that is a proven 12-step program that works. If somebody is interested on either end of this, and again, I'll put lots of resources in. You mentioned as a mentor, they have to have a certain amount of recovery, and I would assume they would reach out, and the website seems pretty clear. They would go to the website to either sign up as a mentor or a mentee.
Yeah. So through the website, we've got applications for both programs on there.
You
So
do.
whether
Okay.
you're requesting a mentor or whether you want to become a mentor, and then you fill out the application. We do recruitment twice a year. So there's always a spring cohort and a fall cohort. And you can always submit an interest form in the meantime if applications aren't open. And then once that cohort opens up, we'll go through all the applications. Our program coordinators will do interviews and reach out to both mentors and mentees to make sure that they would be good fits for the program. And then after that, we go through training with the volunteers and then the cohort begins.
Wow. So fall meaning, I'm sorry, spring would be around April, May is coming up.
Yeah, so spring actually just wrapped up. It's a little confusing with our scheduling because it's like the spring cohort will actually start in like April or May, but we just finished recruitment for that cohort because now we'll spend the next couple of months training. Yeah,
Okay.
so yeah,
So
so
it's kind
we'll
of
actually
rolling.
yeah, it's a rolling thing. So actually in that May April timeframe, we'll be getting ready to recruit for the fall cohort. So yeah.
So if you're interested right now, you don't have a long time to wait. It might be a couple months until the new cohort starts getting trained
Yeah.
and looked at.
Yeah. Yeah, it might
What
just be a couple
age?
months. And like I said, the interest form is always up on the website. So folks can submit their interest form on there. And then as soon as applications open up, they'll get an email. So they'll know.
So they can get it off their to-do list if they're interested in doing it. How old do you have to be on either end, I guess?
18.
You have to
Yeah,
be 18.
18.
Either way.
For peer mentees, it's 16 and over, but you need parental consent there. And also for all peer mentees, they must be working in an outpatient program. So not IOP, but just working with a therapist, working with a nutritionist, working with somebody who can give sign off saying that they would be a good fit, a safe fit for this program.
Love that. I learned a little bit about this. One of my interns here was Kate Ely, and she's a peer support coach working out of
Mhm.
Carolyn Costin's peer support program. Or sorry, ED coach. And so we talked a little bit about all the parameters, and there's a lot of rules to protect people in these relationships. It's really nice.
Yeah, we take that really seriously. We want to make sure that everybody is in a safe environment, both the people who are coming to ANAD for support and those that are giving the support. So, yeah, we do a lot of screening. We work through the applications and we talk with everybody so that we can really get a sense of whether or not this is the right time for them. Because it could just be a timing thing. Maybe this cohort it doesn't work, but 6 months down the road, maybe things are different.
And just because somebody has that passion and the vision to help doesn't mean they're necessarily in the place to help, and you'll help them vet that out to know the
Right.
difference.
Right. True story. I was rejected as a peer mentor the first time. So the first time I had ever heard of ANAD, I was in my advocacy work and sharing my story, and I was like, I want to be a peer mentor. Like that sounds amazing. And I reached out and I applied, but I wasn't at that 2 year mark yet. So they were like, hey, come back in a couple of months and we'll talk again. And of course, things
There
worked
you
out a
go.
little bit differently. I ended up working for the organization, but yeah, it's one of those things where I'm glad because yeah, even though I was like, I want to give back, I want to help, I probably was not in the right space yet to be able to support somebody else because that is a big responsibility.
Absolutely. And again, it's the same. I use the example of sponsorship. It's the same thing. You have to have a certain amount of sobriety. Do you ever walk in someone's office there and be like, in your face, here I am? Do you ever have a moment
Well,
where
we're
you're like,
all
oh,
virtual, so I don't get to walk into anybody's office, but that would be amazing. I might do that at the next team meetup.
I
That sounds
mean,
pretty.
just be like, here I am. This is it. You
I
can't get
made
rid of
it.
me. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. I kind of take for granted because a lot of us here do virtual, but also a lot of in person, and so many places that you don't actually sit, in a cubicle or an office next to somebody. So I forget that.
Yeah, we're scattered across the country. So yeah, we do get together every now and then, whether it's through an event or something like that. So it's always great to see everybody.
And we're getting to the ASAP program because I want to talk a lot about your stretch, but I send people all the time to your support groups. There's a few organizations that, at least through my client reports back, are good ones. Tell me a little bit about the support groups. What do we need to know? What do clients need to know if we refer them?
I love our support groups, and I might be a little partial there because I lead our men's peer support group. So that is the role that I kind of found it as part of my job here. When I first started, I was like, we need to have a space for men because there just isn't anything. So to me, that was kind of my baby, and it was really cool to see that come to fruition. But our peer support groups are just a really magical space, if you ask me. They are 75 minutes that take place through Zoom. And then we have two facilitators on at all times. So if anything comes up and somebody needs that one-on-one support during group, like we can always do like a breakout room or something with them. So we try to make it as accessible as possible. And along those lines, we allow people to keep their cameras off. We know that sometimes those first couple of sessions can feel really scary, really intimidating. Again, we were talking about it earlier, but there's that shame, that stigma around eating disorders. So we don't require that cameras are on. If you want to keep your camera off throughout the whole time, that's fine. If you want to stay quiet and kind of just listen in, that is completely fine too. We ask a check-in question at the beginning, and that's mostly just to make sure everybody's in the right space and to make sure we don't have any bots or anything like that are joining the group. But beyond that check-in question, like folks can keep the camera off, listen into the conversation, and kind of ease their way in if they need to. Leading the men's group, I see it all the time. The first time they join, they the camera off, they're very quiet, and a couple months later, they're leading the conversation. Like they're just going full in on it. So it's really cool to see that journey and that progression take place. But the groups are the groups kind of lead themselves. And I tell people that if they're interested in becoming a group facilitator, you'll see people who go to support group for support, and they're the ones who are giving the support because that's what a peer community is. That's what a peer support group does. So it's
Right.
super cool as a facilitator. A lot of times I just sit back. I make sure that everything stays safe for everyone. We have guidelines in place to make sure we stay away from things like numbers or specific behaviors or anything that could be triggering. But beyond that, it's just letting the conversation organically happen.
So anonymity can be a thing, at least at first, for people who are a little uncomfortable. And sometimes the screens are uncomfortable. So you have the men's group. What are a couple other groups that people might find? Are there a lot
Yeah,
of them?
so
Is that a hard question to ask you?
we've got 19 groups in total that meet every single week.
A
So
lot.
we've got, I can't remember the exact number, but we've got quite a few just general groups that are open to anyone. But then we do have population-based and focused support groups. We've got LGBTQIA+, we've got BIPOC, we've got older adults, people in larger
Yes.
bodies. We've got one of our newest groups is chronic illness and long-term disability and eating disorders, which is
Mm,
that started last year. And shout out to our volunteers there because they made that happen. And it is
great idea.
such an awesome group. And then in addition to all of those, throughout the year, we do pop-up groups. So there's holiday pop-up groups. There are, again, identity-based pop-up groups. Sometimes we'll do groups for athletes or for individuals in performing arts. done it for co-occurring conditions like OCD. We've done it for specific diagnosis like I guess not a specific diagnosis, but specific conditions like orthorexia or individuals with binge eating disorder or things like that. So there's always different support group options that are coming up throughout the year.
I love the pop-up. Makes me think of Lucy. You just pop up somewhere with 5 cents from Peanuts and
Exactly.
offer a
Yeah.
group.
That's how it feels. That's how it feels. Yeah.
I love it. Now, can people get on a mailing list if they go to the website to be kept apprised of the support groups?
Yeah. Yep. So sign up for our newsletter, sign up for any of the support groups, and you'll receive that notification moving forward.
And the reason we're having this conversation going even beyond ANAD is that the community needs so much of this. And I think you and your organization are doing a very good job of it. So we're kind of almost looking at this, and at the end, we'll probably talk about that. How do we recreate this? How do we make sure there's more of this? How do we create more access? Because you're already providing a wonderful service
Hmm.
and free
Yeah.
and free, right? I mean, I believe all of it's free, isn't it?
All of it is free. Yeah.
That's crazy.
We try to make it as accessible as possible. And again, that's why we rely on those donations and those gifts from other people because, yeah, we don't want somebody to ever feel like they have to pay to come to a support group or pay to call the helpline or pay for a peer mentor. Like everything else is plenty expensive out there these days. To get basic community and connection and support, that should be accessible to
Right.
everyone.
Yeah. Pay more for your bread, but have some mental health that's you can
Yeah.
have. What about this helpline? That I did not know about. How does the helpline function? What is its purpose?
Yeah, so the helpline is like a warm line. I tell people it's like calling in to get a big hug. So if you're just if one you've got questions about eating disorders or you're concerned about a loved one and you're not sure how to navigate those conversations, like call the helpline. We're here to answer your questions to help walk you through that process, guide you through that process. But if you're struggling with any food or body image concerns, and you're going through a tough moment, perhaps you've got a vacation coming up or there's a tough social outing coming up, give us a call, talk to us. We're here to just kind of provide support and encouragement along the way. So it is not a crisis line. We do not handle emergencies or crisis like that. We will, of course, refer you out and send you somewhere else. But if you just need some support or some information or some guidance on things, like give us a call. Our peer support volunteers are here to answer the call.
What are the times that's available?
Yeah, so that's available Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Central Time.
A lot of time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like this. And when we hear helpline, you're right. Our brains kind of go to crisis hotline, but this is an information line
Yeah, this is an
potentially or
information
support.
and a support line. Yeah, and,
Yeah.
and encouragement and stuff. And if somebody is looking for a treatment provider in their area, they can request a treatment referral through our helpline. And then
Mm.
we've got a referral team that will work with them to identify, if they've got insurance requirements or identity-based requirements or eating disorder type needs. They will work to find a list of providers in their area. So that's another
Wow.
thing that people can utilize through the helpline.
You guys have everything. Can I get a crown and a root canal here too? Wow.
Yeah, we can try.
For free? Maybe not.
Yeah, that would be nice, wouldn't it? Oof.
That would be very nice. Yeah. So there's so much. It's all on the website, but there's so much that you provide. You provide it through probably the tireless and passionate work of your staff, getting in money, getting in grants, getting on, you know, being seen out there. What a lot of work that has to be to fund all this.
Hmm. Yeah, one of the things that motivates me is I didn't know about ANAD when I was first diagnosed with my eating disorder, when I was first reaching out for resources. Then I kind of heard of the place with the funny name, and I'm like, well, they just support anorexia nervosa, and that's not me, so they probably can't do anything to help me. So I really didn't think anything else about ANAD for a while. And then as I got more involved with my work and started to understand more about the organization, I was like, oh, wow, they're making a big difference. So that kind of fuels me in the work that I do every single day as director of community engagement is I want those people out there who don't know about ANID, who have never heard about it, or who don't know what the services are to finally know because it would have changed my life back when I was really struggling. So that motivates me every day to at least get, if I can tell 5 more people every single day about ANID, it'll make a big difference because you never know who needs to know about the resources.
Yeah. And to your point, you don't know it's there typically until somebody presents it. And if you're in crisis and dealing with an eating disorder or a family dealing with it, you don't have the bandwidth necessarily to try to find this stuff. That's our job.
No.
Yeah. I love that. Now we're up to the program where I don't think this is the first place I met you. I think I met you through the second time. We ended up in two different Zooms, I believe. And that's the ASAP program, which is the Student School Ambassador program, which I am stoked about because this is taking advocacy to a whole nother level. And you are using young people, well, yes, you are in a way
Yeah.
utilizing their
There
skills
are
and
people.
passion. They're out in the world. Tell us a little bit about this because it's an amazing program in my opinion.
Yeah, so this was something again that I was really passionate about when I got started in advocacy work because it was in high school and college when I started to struggle with the eating disorder. And we weren't having these types of conversations. We learned about eating disorders for like one day in health class, and it was totally just along the lines of the stereotypes that exist out there. So for me, it was really important that we started to get a presence on high school and college campuses. And as somebody who has gone and shared my story many times at these places, I realized that it really makes a big impact when it comes from a peer, when it comes from a fellow student, because I'm just the old guy coming to campus to share my story and tell them about how I walked a mile to get to school. But when they can talk to a peer, to a student, to a friend who has been through an eating disorder or who is just really passionate about raising awareness, they tend to listen more. So that's how, kind of where the student ambassador program started is it follows, if you ask me, kind of that peer support model again, where we've got the students empowered to become the advocates at high schools and colleges across the country. We've expanded to nearly 70 in our second year, and they do all sorts of different campaigns and events and projects. One of them goes about and drops off rubber duckies with notes of positivity and mental health affirmations on it across her community. Another one hosts scale smashing events at her school. Some of them are presenting now at conferences, at mental health conferences, and it's really cool to see these students kind of take off in their areas of passion and what they're interested in, and they're driving the change there on campuses.
So basically, their job is to, within the dynamic of their school and what their own skill sets are, to decide how to get messages across to the other students about
Yeah,
eating
yeah,
disorders and
they get
advocacy.
to decide. Yeah, they get to decide, and then we're here to support them. So we've
Mhm.
got a training program in place. So they go through some basic training to learn a little bit more about eating disorders, a little bit more kind of around the diversity and inclusion efforts that we strongly believe in here at ANAD, and also then about advocacy and how to become a better advocate. So they go through this training, and then yeah, it's kind of a build it yourself, make it your own, depending on what the environment is like at your school, depending on what you really want to talk about or what you really want to do, we'll make it happen. You just gotta, reach out to me. When the ambassadors work with each other, they're constantly exchanging ideas and telling them, hey, I did this and it works. So then another one will do it at their school. And it's a really cool community and just a force to be reckoned with because some of these students, they got passion. This next generation is going to be the one I think that finally smashes the stigma around eating disorders.
I hope so. Oh, that's so super exciting. So, and each of the, what I love about this is that you are the backbone of it, though. So they can go out and feel this freedom, but they're actually protected under ANAD in a sense. You are their trainer, and so they get to use this name, use sort of your cred, if you will, but they can go out and be totally creative.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, totally. Yeah, they can be as creative as they want, and yeah, we're here to back them. We're here to help them out as much as we can. And yeah, because I tell every ambassador when they're onboarding, I don't want to tell you to do X, Y, and Z because one, it might not work in your community, and two, if you're not passionate about doing it, you're either going to get uninterested, disengaged, and not continue in the program, or you're really not going to make that big of an impact. So it's up to them. I let them kind of take the reins and decide what direction they want to go, and then I'm here to support them every step of the way.
Well, how have the schools been? Have there ever been a situation where the school was like, "We don't like what you're saying. We don't like how you're doing it." Has that ever happened?
Overall, we've been okay with schools. We did run into an instance a couple weeks ago where they would not allow a student ambassador to start a club there because they worried that talking about eating disorders would cause more harm. And I get where they're coming from, but it kind of goes back to what we ran into with ANAD back in
You
1976,
have to
where it's
talk.
like, hey, this we're doing it in a responsible, respectful manner, and every student goes through training. I am constantly checking in with them. It's not like they can just put together a resource guide and start sharing it. Like it's got to be reviewed. We work on it together. So it's frustrating when you see some of the schools still kind of fight back and refuse to even let the conversation start.
Well, and what's so interesting about this, at least here in Ohio, we don't even have a rubric for how health classes talk about eating disorders. So there's not a lot of latitude to say students shouldn't do it because there really isn't a lot of people organizing it better other than us, the professionals. So I'm not sure what they were worried about. There's probably already some very negative messages in the health classes.
Yeah, so that's always frustrating when we run into those situations. But we try to like pivot and navigate to get the students still as involved as they can be. Because yeah,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, if they're not going to listen to somebody who's working with ANID, they're probably not going to listen to anybody.
Needs a lot of schools, not only
Hmm.
volunteer wise, but just that's a lot of reach already. I'm very impressed with that number.
Yeah, it's been really cool. As of the last check, I think we were in 29 different states, which is really cool to see too. Because my goal is to get us in all 50 one of these days.
Amen. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Shout out to
we
Arkansas. As of the recording of this, we just added in Arkansas, so that was exciting.
yay, welcome Arkansas. I
Yeah.
know you're in Ohio because that's how I know one of your ambassadors. I think that's how you and I met. And I didn't know who you specifically were or what they were doing until I connected the dots. And I was like, wow, it's perfect. And I hope that what we're doing here is similar. We're trying to educate staff and coaches and teachers in order to start the messages kind of from the top down. And we're hoping to get in a lot of schools, but it's hard. It's hard to start even just to open up that first conversation to not have somebody shut you off. So kudos to these young people.
It really is, and that's why I'm excited because I think it takes all of us. Like, if it takes the students getting in there first and maybe starting some of those conversations from the bottom up,
Mhm.
like that, maybe that's what we got to do. And then, we bring you in and start to talk about curriculum change and all of that. So,
That's my
yeah,
goal.
that's what I love about our student ambassador program is it's always open for collaboration. We're always, working with others to create the change that the students want to see. And if we can get schools that are on board for it, like we don't let them go because sometimes it's very hard to get those connections. So when you're able to build that connection, you foster it.
It is. And I think it's just like you said, they either don't understand or they're afraid. They think they're protecting their students. And we know that the talk is necessary. It's just how we do it. We can do it informed. And so we're trying to grow too. And you and I have talked about trying to have some kind of a collaboration on that. So it's pretty exciting. What else have you noticed is out there that's missing? So your nose is in the community. You see what's going on. Where are you noticing that there's a gap in either education or awareness? Where do you think it's the hardest to get through?
Yeah, and well, I still think there is a big gap when it comes to high schools and colleges
Yeah.
because they're not talking about it enough. There's just not in health classes, it's not talked about properly. Unfortunately, it's just being swept under the rug. And I think there's also a misunderstanding from a lot of high school counselors or social workers who are out there who, as soon as they hear eating disorders, they run the other way because they're like, well, I don't want to cause more harm. I'm not qualified to work on this. But to me, there's still things you can do for harm reduction, and there are still ways that you can connect your students to the resources that can help them. So when I hear these stories of people being like, "Well, it's an eating disorder. This is outside of my field. I'm washing my hands of this." That's when I get really frustrated. And to me, that's where one of the biggest gaps is right now. Is we need every person who is talking to a student, whether it is the secretary in the office or whether it's the principal or whether it's the counselors in the counseling department, to understand what eating disorders really are and how they can support their students because we can all take a role in supporting them. None of us have to be like, this is outside of what I can do.
And you don't, and this is something we teach when we do our program, is you don't have to be a credentialed therapist to be able to talk to a young person, to listen to your point. You need some information, which is what we provide and you provide, to know what to do in your resources, but you're already a skilled person working with young people that's probably passionate with what you do, like for people in school. So you're already halfway there. It's just giving them enough resources so that they feel safer in those conversations.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And we do. They're the first people to see who's eating lunch, who isn't, who's isolating, who's not focusing in class. Like they're the ones that are going to see it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. And one of the things that like always comes to mind for me too is like student athletes. They are at like in increased risk, and we've got so many coaches and athletic directors who just turn a blind eye to eating disorders. They do not want to talk about it at all. They do not want to bring awareness to it. And I've got a friend, Rachel Stile, who's part of Running in Silence, and through her organization, she always talks about how when concussions came about a decade ago in the NFL, like suddenly all the athletic departments were putting in concussion protocols and things like that. Well, we need the same thing for eating disorders. Eating disorders are just as serious, but yet we can't get our athletes, we can't get our students to get that protection, that support that they need when it comes to eating disorders because people simply don't understand them.
Wonderful comparison because the world blew up with I know when my kids do sports, we have to sign like 5 different forms. There's the Lindsay Hart Law, there's the concussion. But yeah, why are we not all making sure we're looking at our kids and making sure they're safe and nourished? And we may not know what that looks like. When we teach this, we talk about how a lot of times you're not going to see it in a young person. You may not even know as a trained person, but we at least need to have a conversation so a young person feels safe talking about it, if they have it. That's great. So tell me a little bit. Let's look over to that because I noticed there's 2 other things that you're part of: Running in Silence and then SoulPaws Recovery Project, which I'm going to assume has to do with dogs. But is Running in Silence an advocacy for athletes? Is that?
Yeah, yeah. So Rachel was a college runner, college cross country, and she developed an eating disorder and wrote about it in her book, Running in Silence. And it was
Nice.
actually her book that inspired me to write my book. And she served as a mentor for me throughout the entire process of starting to share my story and stuff. And it's really nice. She lives here in Grand Rapids, so we get to see each other quite often nowadays. And it's really cool to be a part of that organization where she is out there trying to educate coaches and trainers and athletic departments
Mm.
on the warning signs, on how to navigate some of those conversations. And really, at the end of the day, just raising awareness of the prevalency of eating disorders in student athletes, because I think so
Mm.
many athletic departments just have a blind eye to it right now. And it's so obvious. Like me or you being in this community, we can see it, but unfortunately, I think coaches and things like that aren't seeing it because they're not looking for it. So
Looking in the
Rachel does
wrong
a really good
place.
job at working with those coaches and trainers and
Yeah.
stuff to recognize the warning signs.
I love that. I mean, I think but they're looking at, well, they just PR'd, so they have to be fine. And I can mention at least 3 clients I have with major anorexia who have PR'd. It's not, so what they're looking for is not, they just don't know. We need to educate. Rachel sounds like someone I need to get to know too. Well, both to
Rachel
raise
is
a plus,
amazing.
but
Yes, yes.
hello,
Shout
Rachel,
out to Rachel. I'm sure she'll be listening to this at some point. So,
right?
yeah, I will make the connection, I promise.
I can't help myself, Jason. It's all about this advocacy. And no one's making money, so I don't feel bad. I'm not at all bashful about it.
Yeah.
Let's do this. But Running in Silence is her book. And then you said it motivated you to write Starving Through Survival,
Yes.
right?
Starving
Is
for
that the name of
survival?
your
Yeah.
book? Yeah. Can you tell me a
Yeah.
little bit about your book? Because I didn't even know
Yeah.
that you wrote a book.
So I didn't plan on writing a book. I've always enjoyed writing, and it's always been something I'm passionate about. But a couple months into starting to share my story through the blog, I was working on what I thought was going to be a blog post, and it started looking back at childhood and reflecting upon some of the things those seeds that were first planted in the eating disorder. And I kept writing, and I kept writing, and the next thing I know, I had like 50,000 words in front of me, and I'm like, this is not a blog post. This has turned into a book, and it just kind of organically happened. So I reached out to Rachel, and because at that point I'd already made a connection with her through Dr. Paula Quattromani, who's amazing as well. And I was like, I don't know what to do with this. Like I got this like transcript here, but what do I do now? So she helped me with the editing and working through it and getting it ready for publishing. So it was really cool. It's a memoir that, like I said, it starts with the seeds that were planted in childhood, and it kind of grows with me along the way and just navigates the different experiences I went through in life that contributed to my eating disorder, what it was like coming to terms with my eating disorder, and then what those early days of recovery looked like.
And we need those stories. We need people who are not where you are to look and say, wait, I'm here, but I can be there. I can find that recovery.
Yeah, and for me it was really important because there really wasn't any memoir out there about orthorexia yet, and there really wasn't any memoir out there by a man with an eating disorder. So for
Mm.
me it was so important to get those two things out there because I knew there had to be other guys and I knew there had to be other people with orthorexia.
It's almost like our gateway now. I mean, not to be too trend wording, but orthorexia is dangerous. It's very, very dangerous. Not just from a nutrition standpoint, but it just the well, the brain static, the food noise, how loud that is.
Yeah. Yeah, I was talking to somebody the other day. I was in some sort of interview or something, and they were asking me about the severity of orthorexia. And I was like, I'll be blunt with you. It almost cost me my life. Like, I was to the point where physically my body was starting to break down, and it was from orthorexia. And people are like, oh, wow, that's more serious than I thought it was. And yeah, unfortunately, like you said, it's the gateway. And there were times throughout my battle that I would say I was dealing with anorexia or that I was dealing with binge eating, but at the end of the day, it kind of always came back to that orthorexic baseline.
A little insidious because someone can be like, well, I'm just trying to eat this way or prevent this or do this. And it almost looks valid from a distance. And then you get close to it and you realize how debilitating it is. And when you know firsthand, it's sneaky. It's a sneaky and it's a hard one to work with young people on who are in these diet wellness cultures that think that they're logically correct. It's really tough.
Yeah, I was
Yeah,
convinced I was doing the right thing. I was convinced, and I was proud of it. I celebrated it, and the people
of
around me
course.
applauded me for it. I never had to hide orthorexia. It was there, front and center the whole time.
Oh, there's our next podcast. There it is. Let's talk about orthorexia next, okay?
Yeah. All
Yeah.
right.
It's a hot one. I feel like I got to put on my boxing gloves when I get in a room with a 15-year-old with orthorexia, and I'm like,
Yeah.
listen, bear with me here. I got to throw some stuff at you.
Oh yeah,
It's a lot.
so I was featured in a CNN article, which was really cool. But
Yeah.
like two
Yeah.
years ago during Eating Disorder Awareness Week, but then I made the mistake of going to the comment section, which you should never ever do, and I know better than that. But the amount of people who were invalidating my experience or questioning what I had done and just saying I was bad at dieting and things like that, it was really saddening because I'm like, yeah, you're probably also dealing with orthorexia right now, but you're just in denial. Yeah, like it's hard.
Uh, it's almost like a little bit of I don't want to say a cult kind of brain, but there's a brain hijack that goes on in our culture, and people carry these narratives, and a lot of them aren't science based, so it's kind of scary. But they'll defend them, even sometimes in an ugly way. And yeah, we have the science. We work from science here, so I love that your book. It's terrific that it's about orthorexia as well as your full journey. And is it available on Amazon?
It is, yeah. It's available on Amazon. It's also available on Kindle, so if you want to get the digital version of it, you can. I always like to have a physical copy in hand. I'm one of those people that has to have the physical book.
I am too. I am too. I just can't. Maybe one day, but I like to leaf through the pages. And even if I get them from the library, I'll get some of the mental health books and then I'll decide if I want to purchase them. But gotta touch them. I have to. What's the pie in the sky? What do you hope to see if you had the funding, the support, the world continues to nod this way? What do you see happening to make these big changes that you're starting?
Yeah, so for me, like my ultimate personal goal is to pursue a place where I can kind of bring together the two things that I'm most passionate about, and that's eating disorder awareness and then storytelling. Because storytelling was instrumental in the work that I did personally, and now it's instrumental in the work that I'm doing from an advocacy standpoint. So I would love to be able to break down the accessibility barriers there so that anybody who is interested in sharing their story feels empowered to do so, whether they're just intimidated by writing it themselves or whether they can't afford to publish it or go through that entire process. Like that is what I want to do because again, to me, it's empowering people to share their stories is going to be how we make the change. We can go out there and spout off numbers about statistics or research studies or any of that. And it's not going to resonate the way it will if we have a bunch of memoirs out there or a bunch of independent films or we have a bunch of people sharing their stories and getting their voices heard. So for me, that's like my pie in the sky. What I dream to be able to do is just to be able to empower like an army, I guess you could say, of people with lived experience who can feel comfortable and confident and safe in sharing their story.
Then everyone will share. Like nowadays, people are like, I have anxiety, I have ADHD. It's like a no brainer. Whereas maybe one day eating disorders will be like that too. Everyone's like, well, yeah, I know what disordered eating is, or I have an eating disorder.
Wouldn't that be amazing? It would be so amazing. Like if you, yeah, if we just talked about it and it wasn't special, if we didn't have to have podcast episodes like this, or if,
Right.
we
And this
didn't
would be
have to have
boring.
eating disorder awareness week necessarily, like if we could just, if it was just part of the everyday conversation, that would be amazing.
Yeah. Well, I always joke that I up here in Sugar and Falls is where Taylor and Kelsey are supposed to be moving. So, and she has an eating disorder story. So I'm like, when she gets on here and records her story, then somebody with that kind of advocacy and spread of impact, we need more of that.
That's what we need.
We need people with names and money and connections too.
Yeah, we need that. And we also need people with no names and no money too. It takes
For
all
sure.
of us.
All of us. We need everyone to just talk their story and quit, yeah, and own it and share it. So you have this beautiful storytelling design that you see in the world. I love it.
Yeah, I love it. We did at ANAD, we did 2 years ago during Eating Disorders Awareness Week, we did This Is My Brave. And we partnered with that organization for a night of storytelling. And we had 20 individuals get up on stage and share their stories through written word, through poetry, through dance, through song. It was life-changing. It was so cool to work with each one of them because when they first auditioned and wanted to be a part of the program, some of them were really timid, really nervous, really scared because this was
Yeah.
the first time they were going to share in public. By the time the event rolled around, they owned the stage. Like they were ready to go. And that was just so cool to hear them share their
Mm.
experiences. And it was kind of funny. My husband was in the audience. And as we were driving home that night, he's like, wow, I think I really understand what eating disorders are all about now. And I'm like, what? I've been sharing my story for years around you, and now because you listen to these other people talk, like you get it. But that meant it was an impactful event. Yeah, there is so much power in storytelling.
There is, and we don't know what voice is going to resonate with who. So for your husband, there was just a certain voice or tenor about it that resonated, and it was not coming from the home. Sometimes it coming from the outside world is extremely validating. I love that. That's you guys did such cool stuff over there. I got to spend more time on your website because I'm excited to start using you even more than I already do. Is there a piece of advice from your own personal experience as well as the one you have of working in advocacy and support for someone out there who's listening to this who's not where you are now? What's something you would tell them?
Yeah, I would say, and this could go across all for anybody who's listening, but it's never going to change overnight. So whether you're in recovery or you're struggling, take it one day at a time, one step at a time. There's going to be ups and downs along the way. I'm sure you've heard it from other people too, but it's the truth. And it's almost like one day you wake up and there's this new sense of freedom that you've never had before, but you just got to put in the work little by little, day by day. And the same goes for anybody who's interested in getting involved in advocacy and awareness. When I first started, I wanted to change the world. But now I've learned that if I just focus on changing one person's world at a time, I can make a much bigger impact. Because it can get frustrating. It is frustrating when you're constantly sharing your story or you're raising awareness and nobody's listening. But you never know who is
Nobody
listening.
is.
There could be that one person out there. And if that one person hears the message, then you've done exactly what you set out to do.
That tracks. That's I know in social work we talk about the one starfish or something that you have to stay focused on saving the one in the ocean, not the whole ocean, and you are making a huge impact. I mean, there's no question, but I love that. Yeah, and the momentum you mentioned, which you know because you've been through recovery, there's something that changes, isn't there? And I always tell people just keep fighting. You will feel momentum eventually, and it'll come out of nowhere, but you will catch it at some point.
Yeah, yeah. One of my mantras was to trust the process, embrace the process, and eventually enjoy the process. And I can't tell you when it went from embrace to enjoy, but it did. It
It
happened just
does.
kind of
It
over
does.
time. But there were moments when my therapist would say something or my dietitian would say something, and I was like, they are completely outside of they have no idea what they're doing. This is never going to work for me. But I had to trust them and I had to embrace what they were telling me. And that's what I did. And eventually it did. It led to that being able to enjoy recovery. But that's not to say there's still not tough days. I still have tough days. But I have the tools and the resources now to be able to fight back and to continue moving forward.
And that is recovery. Recovery is just being better equipped to handle it and to not think you don't have to regress. You don't have to, step all the way down. You have better tools now. Yeah, you don't have to relapse. I love that. What's your word to describe your journey or your journey at ANID or with starving through survival? Like, what's the word?
Ooh, what's the word? Ooh,
A
that's a
word that
tough one.
describes all that.
Ooh. I feel like wow could be the word. I'm gonna do a hyphenated word if that's okay, because I'm wordy, so I got to. Terrifyingly exciting. Because to me, that is exactly what recovery has been like and advocacy has been like, is it is terrifying, but at the same time, it is one of the most exciting, rewarding experiences ever. So
That
terrifyingly exciting.
I love it. It's like a roller coaster. You're like, it's terrifying, but I'm gonna like it, but ooh, it's gonna be tough.
Yeah. Yeah, there are moments where it's just like, what am I doing? I still sometimes when I get up and share my story, I get nervous and I start the sweaty palms and the shaking a little bit and stuff, but two
Yeah.
words in and I'm like, yeah, this is what we need to be doing. These are the
So
conversations we need to have.
yeah, absolutely. And it's exciting when you get to see that. And sometimes it's terrifying to go through all these obstacles also. But you do it and then you get to the other side. Just kind of
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
like
and
that.
that's exactly how I would sum up my recovery journey is it was like somebody ripped my security blanket away and I had to learn to survive without the eating disorder, but I found excitement along the way.
Finally exciting. That's gonna resonate with me all day. I love it. Well, I think I'm excited that we covered so much of what Anna does, what you've done for the community, what we need to have done, and what's out there. Just giving people hope that there's a lot of support and a lot of people. There's 300 volunteers at your place. There's probably over 70 students out in the world, in the nation, helping. There's a lot of people out there on team eating disorder.
Yeah, yeah, and to me, that's the reminder right there that we're not alone. We're never alone in this, whether it's recovery or whether it's advocacy, we're not alone.
Not. I love it. And you and I we're gonna change the world a couple steps at a time, right?
We are. We are.
We're gonna
Michigan and Ohio are teaming up.
Well, we know how that went, but we're not gonna talk about that. I don't X my M's out. I'm pretty well behaved about all that.
Well, I'm an Iowa fan anyway, so I'm neutral on this.
So we don't have to worry about it. Yeah. I mean, I'm a Buckeye, but yeah. So we don't have to have an argument. We talked about this last time. We're safe with each
Yeah,
other. We can be
yeah,
safe in this
we're good.
setting.
We're good.
It's not like you're from Pittsburgh or anything. It's okay. Well, I appreciate your time. You're doing all of these amazing things. Thank you for talking with me. And I think we have to have another one. Maybe one focused on orthorexia next time.
Absolutely. I'm
Thanks
looking
for
forward to
listening
it.
to the Mental Health Spotlight podcast, helping you hold hope on your recovery path.